Arizona starting point guard Kylan Boswell is out. What does this mean for Arizona going forward and for Jaden Bradley?
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day. I'm your host, Mike Luke. This show is brought to you by FanDuel. Check it out, FanDuel. All kinds of good stuff going on at FanDuel. We will revisit FanDuel. All right, now a lot to get to on this show, but Kylan Boswell has entered the transfer portal at the U of A now, or from the U of A. Now, to just kind of recalibrate. Kylan Boswell came here as a very highly rated recruit. He was Tommy Lloyd's probably first real highly rated kid. He was a 5-star point guard. Obviously, he ended up transferring out of Corona Centennial down to Compass Prep, and he got to Arizona enrolled a year early, and he showed a lot of promise as a freshman. Was a pretty good three-point shooter, looked to have a little bit of a kind of a steadiness to his game that Kirk Kriisa just didn't possess. And, there was a lot, like I said, there was a lot to like about him. And, going into this year, there were some, I'll put it to you like this. Everybody kind of knew behind the scenes that Kylan Boswell was a big partier, that he really enjoyed the college life. And honestly, I don't have a big problem with that. That to me isn't a big thing. But the problem is just, how much the partying was occurring, or the deep partying, and, just kind of enjoying the college life. That works if you're if you're balling and you're putting up big numbers, but it also doesn't work if you're not necessarily putting up big numbers. And I think that's kind of where the rub lied with Boswell. And again, he is a good kid. I think people need to understand that, because you're young, you're 18. I mean, a lot of people just enjoy college life, and there's, like I said, there's nothing wrong with that. I think, and again, I hope Tommy Lloyd is here for 500 years. I think that he is the right man for the job. I love Tommy Lloyd, but I do think that, he kind of enabled Kylan a little bit here, and that Kylan was kind of allowed to do whatever Kylan wanted to do. And, people knew that, he was enjoying his time at the U of A, which is, like I said, which is fine. But then I think where it all kind of hits, and it was all kind of encapsulated, was that blackjack table picture that everybody has seen. Kylan Boswell with the U of A in the Pac-12 tournament, playing for a 1 seed, went to a blackjack table knowing that he's not allowed to be there, and also knowing that, honestly, the coach probably wasn't going to do anything about it. And that's exactly what happened. Is Kylan Boswell went there, he was caught, and he lost absolutely no playing time. That to me is kind of the encapsulation of what happened. Boswell needed to be disciplined there. Boswell needed to be sat. The biggest thing that a coach can do is discipline his players, and that just that didn't occur. I mean, honestly, I don't really care if there was like some yelling behind the scene or some extra, laps ran or whatever the case may be. I don't really care about that. The biggest thing you can do is to bench a kid. And that was never going to happen. And Kylan Boswell knew that. And I think that probably was a little bit of a calculation that I can kind of do what I want, because there's not going to really be anything that is going to come of that. But, so then the NCAA tournament hits, and Kylan has a very, very good game. That first game of the tournament against Long Beach State. But then you got into Dayton, and then you got into Clemson, and you saw kind of what Arizona fans were dealing with the entire season. What Kylan Boswell was dealing with is that he was kind of terrified to shoot, and that's something that you just really can't really have happen. He started walking on eggshells. And the thing that was weird to me is I'm not exactly sure why this occurred, because he had a coach that was going to play him no matter what. No matter what happened on the court, off the court, Kylan Boswell was going to play 20 plus minutes per game, every single game. period. So he knew he was going to play, but obviously that it kind of got to him, and he was a liability for a good percentage of the season. And that's something when you're a point guard at the U of A, you're going to have a lot of eyes on you, especially in this NIL era where you're going to be getting compensated pretty well. And when you've got a lot of eyes on you, you got to be able to perform. And that just never really occurred. And that's something that it was a big problem for him pretty much all season. And and I think this is why everybody was hoping that he would snap out of it, is that you saw against Duke where he was one of the best players on the court. And it just kind of slowly unraveled from there. There would be some games where he looked good. ASU he looked pretty good. Against Oregon, he looked pretty good. But overall, he just wasn't good enough. And listen, when you got a point guard that you're going into games and and he's pretty much scared to shoot, that's going to be a little bit of an issue. And that obviously was an issue for him, and that was an issue for Arizona because honestly, it just wasn't good enough. And like I said, Lloyd stuck with him through thick and thin. And at the end of the day, I think this was a move that will benefit both sides immensely. Now, if I'm a school, I'm interested in Boswell. Now, again, I need to probably have a talk with him a little bit about some of the extracurricular activities, but I would be interested in him because I think with a fresh start, I think that he could play. I think he could be a pretty good basketball player. He was probably in hindsight a little bit overrated because he's not a next level athlete by any means. And he also can't penetrate, which is kind of a weird thing. He and Kirk Kriisa both had that going for him in that they were essentially standstill kind of 3-point shooters. They weren't going to try to get into traffic. They weren't going to try to make other people foul them or anything like that. They were essentially going to just shoot threes, and there was really no middle ground. So when you do that, you're kind of easy to defend. And Arizona's had 3 straight years where it's had point guards that couldn't penetrate or starting point guards that couldn't penetrate. And you see that in the free throw numbers. When you shoot something like 28 free throws all game or all season or whatever the number was, if you're a top flight point guard, that's just not enough. And that's something that Arizona's had to deal with the last 3 seasons. And like I said, I think Boswell, I don't have any insight on this, but I can see Boswell ended up in Illinois or something like that, maybe playing for Brad Underwood. And like I said, I think a change of scenery will be good for him. And he also probably saw a little bit of the writing on the wall because there's some possibilities of some players coming back that, I don't know we necessarily saw of a little bit earlier on in the year. And we're going to talk about those and what those players would mean. But first, Gametime. Check it out, Gametime. Download the Gametime app today. Use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. $20 off. All kinds of good stuff at Gametime. Now, listen, maybe you don't have to hook up on tickets to a game and you're like, man, I really want to go to this game, but I don't know how to get in there. Gametime says, look no further, stop sign, and come join us here. Download the Gametime app today. Use code LOCKEDON for $20 off. $20 off your purchase. Again, you can not only use these for sporting events, you can use these for concerts. You can use these for a lot of different events. And again, check it out, Gametime. This is one of those ones. Again, as always, you will thank me later. Download the Gametime app today. Use code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, now, something that has gained steam, and again, this is far from done, so I'm just passing it along. There is a very real chance that Caleb Love could come back next year. Yes, please. Listen, I know a lot of people, are kind of out on Caleb Love with the way that he played down the stretch. I get it. And he's going to be wildly inconsistent at points. That's just kind of what you're going to sign up with Caleb Love. The Caleb Love experience is not all great because, again, if the Caleb Love experience was all great, he would be in the NBA right now. But it's not all great. There obviously are some issues involved. But we also need to take a step back and realize this was also a dude who was named to the preseason Wooden Award watch list. who was on the Wooden team as one of the 10 best players in college basketball. That is a good thing. That is a very good thing. And he's a player that let's be honest, he deserved it. For the majority of the season, he was an absolute dynamo for Arizona, making big shots down the stretch, keeping Arizona in games. Now, there are some things that he's going to, I'd like to see changed a little bit going forward, and we will get to those. But overall, Caleb Love, I think, was very good for the University of Arizona. And again, he was the conference player of the year. That is a good thing. Going into the end, honestly, that's somebody that I like on my side going into the Big 12. He's strong, he's physical, and he's not going to be overwhelmed by things that, like some other guards that we've seen in the past. So he is somebody that I would love to see come back at the U of A. Now, listen, there are some things that he's going to 1,000% have to work on. He should get to the basket more. He has got a real gift. He has got a real gift to be able to get to the basket, and you saw that against Clemson. Clemson was kind of what Caleb Love, in my opinion, should Caleb Love should do when he is looking to when the shot isn't falling. Because again, he's not a great shooter. He's an okay shooter, but he can get hot, but he's not a great shooter. But against Clemson, he started out that second half. He started getting to the hoop. He started, getting downhill, and Clemson really couldn't do anything about it. That's kind of what he should be doing. He is, like I said, he's good at getting to the basket. And I think that will not only that will probably increase his percentages as well, gets him to the free throw line more. And he's a player that should shoot, in my opinion, Caleb Love should shoot 5-6 free throws minimum per game, probably more, because he, like I said, he can get past you. He's strong. He's physical. There's just a lot to really like about. There's just a lot to really like about Caleb Love, and that's what I think that's something that I think that we should that he should embrace if he does come back. And I love the backcourt of him, and Jaden Bradley, because with him and Jaden Bradley, who we're going to get to here in a little bit, it's tough. It's not going to back down to anybody. It might not play the best at times, but it's going to be tough. That's something that is very good. But listen, when Caleb Love started, thinking about that maybe he would come back, it makes a lot of sense from a lot of different angles. He's probably not an NBA player. And when you're probably not an NBA player, if you've got you've got the possibility of making quite a bit of money in NIL and be in the face again of a top 10 team as they go into the Big 12, and you are already the conference player of the year. Why would you not take that? That is something that I think Arizona fans should 1,000% embrace. And again, I would love to see him be able to make some. I would love to see him be able to make some real changes to his game. But at the same time, I would also like him to, I also think that he's somebody that I think can play a little bit better. And we're kind of at the point where you want to see it. And I think next to Jaden Bradley, that'll be very, very good. And I'm excited to see that. We'll see what happens there. We're certainly going to keep you in the loop, but he's definitely keeping an eye on it. And that's something that we wanted to keep you in the loop on. Now, playing next to him, Jaden Bradley. All right, listen. With Jaden Bradley to me is kind of the point guard. It's kind of the encapsulation of what Arizona's been missing at the point guard spot the last 3-4 years. Now, again, is he a perfect player? No. He'd be in the NBA, obviously. But Jaden Bradley brings a toughness, brings a moxie that Arizona players have not necessarily had at that point guard position. Kirk Kriisa yapped a lot and was like, but, when the chips were down, Kirk Kriisa was probably likely to go 2 of 16 and play terrible defense, but talk on his way off the court. Whereas, in Kylan Boswell, we've been over. Jaden Bradley has a cool comfort about him. Every time I watch Jaden Bradley this year, and I tweeted this out a number of times, there's a sense of calm about him. When he's on the court, when he's directing traffic, you just feel comfortable with him out there. And defensively, he's an absolute nightmare. That's something defensively, he's at a level that, that Kerr and that Kylan Boswell, which could just never really reach, because of how physically strong he is, his anticipation skills. He's just somebody that he's, like I said, as far as a comparison goes, I think a Reggie Geary comparison is not the worst thing in the world. If you want to go a little bit more new school, as the kids say, maybe a Kadeem Allen, but defensively, he is a dynamo. He is able to get his hands, he is able defensively to get steals, to get blocks, and just be a pest. The game comes fairly easy to him. And when on the defensive side, and he's strong, and he also got, let's be honest, in that Clemson game, he got screwed out of some calls for sure. Not only did he get screwed out of some calls, he probably, I think he probably was, I think his physicality probably played against him because some of those weren't good calls. But offensively, though, he is fantastic as far as driving to the hoop. And that is something that we have not seen. Against Clemson, when everything slowed down, when nobody really looked like they knew what they were doing, the one dude getting downhill, the one guy getting to the basket was Jaden Bradley. And then when he gets to the free throw line, he is money. He would have made 30 straight against Clemson. Those shots were all good. And he wanted it. And he also showed, too, that just because a team goes into a zone doesn't mean that you have to stop attacking the basket. With Caleb Love, with Pella Larson, with Jaden Bradley, they all kind of play, with Kylan Boswell, they all kind of played into it. They all shot threes. Clemson was hoping that they would shoot threes, and Clemson was more than okay with them shooting threes. It's always a good rule of thumb that if somebody's daring you to shoot, they want you to shoot. You don't necessarily need to shoot, but Arizona obviously fell into that trap, and you saw what happened. Jaden Bradley said, there will be none of that under my watch. I will be getting to the basket, and that is what he did. I think you're going to see a lot more of that. I also think that Jaden Bradley is very, very well equipped for the Big 12. When I look at players, I don't understand, and I keep asking people this, why can't he be Jamal Shead? Now, listen, Jamal Shead has better vision than Jaden Bradley. I get it. But as far as the defense goes, Jaden Bradley is an absolute monster. Jaden Bradley defensively, I think I can put Jaden Bradley up with about anybody in the country as far as his defense goes. And offensively, I think we're going to find out that he is a little bit better shooter than people do give him credit for. Is he a great shooter? No. But I think he's going to be a more than passable shooter, and a big part of what he can do as well is he can get to the basket. He can get to the line. When games slow down, when you need to be able to get buckets, Arizona has not had a lot of those guys. Jaden Bradley excels at that, and he has shown, too, in big moments he excels at it. Also, Bradley this season has made a number of big shots. People always say, well, he's not a good shooter, this or that. But, whether that was against Michigan State, some other games this year, or heck, against Dayton, against Clemson, there were times when he was the most clutch player on the court, and he was the dude that wanted the ball. So you got to factor that in. That is a big part of all of this. So Bradley, I love the fact that they put Jaden Bradley in there, and not only do they want that, they are kind of at the stage too where Arizona is going to embrace it. So we will find out. I'm excited to see it. Now, FanDuel. All right. This is the best time of the year. Check it out. FanDuel.com/lockedon. All right. All kinds of good stuff. Listen, you can bet before the game. You can bet during the game. You can bet on sports that you have no interest in, but it makes it more interesting if you bet on FanDuel. So again, check it out, FanDuel.com/lockedon. And the great thing about FanDuel too is, your money's good. A lot of times people, they put in money and they're like, I I don't know. When am I going to get this back? All of that. FanDuel says, do not worry. Come to us. We will take care of you. We will get you what you need. Check it out. FanDuel.com/locked on. All right. Now, a good thing about it, too, with FanDuel is that you're kind of at the stage where you know that baseball's here and you got the NBA. Why not use some of this? Why not get a little bit of skrill, a little bit of cash in the game? Check it out, FanDuel.com/locked on. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I'm your host, Mike Luke. All right, now let's talk about the perimeter for Arizona and the possibilities. Possibilities are very, very intriguing. If I could have a lineup of Jaden Bradley, Caleb Love, and KJ Lewis. KJ Lewis, by the way, probably will test the NBA waters, but they expect him back. I don't love testing the NBA waters. We've seen how Dalen Terry worked out, but let's just assume that that's your starting perimeter. That is an awesome perimeter, and it is tough, and it is physical, and that's the kind of perimeter you want going into the Big 12 because you've got three dogs right there. You got three guys that want the moment, and then you look at a Josan Sanon, probably being your first guard off the bench, and I do believe he would stick around. You also would have a Jamari Phillips possibly. Then you're going to have to get another guard, obviously. You're going to have to, because, again, you can't go, in my opinion, you can't go into the season with Conrad Martinez as your backup point guard. And then up front, you got some work to do, obviously. You got Mount Crevis, you got Henry Vasar. But that's about it. You don't have a lot after that. So again, I'd like to see Arizona go out and get a Trey Townsend type, perhaps somebody like that from Oakland. But you've got the shell of a really, really good team. And not only do you have the shell of a really good team, you've got a team that I think is built to play in a tough, more physical style. And that is something that Arizona fans, I think, should very much embrace. So we will find out there. But just to kind of rehash, Kylan Boswell obviously out. One thing that like I said, people need to understand about Boswell is that he is a good kid. He is not a bad kid at all. We've seen bad kids come through here. Kylan is not a bad kid. And, by all accounts, his teammates got along with him. He, like I said, probably just a better fit somewhere else for both sides, because I think both sides can probably reach a little bit of a higher potential somewhere else. But that's kind of where it's at. But Arizona, we're going to have a lot of moving parts here going forward, a lot of moving parts. And listen, Tommy Lloyd has retooled his roster 3 straight years. Listen, the NCAA tournament success hasn't been there, but he has shown during the regular season that he knows exactly what he is doing, and he has put together rosters that are good enough to compete. And that's a big part of what Arizona is doing, and that's a big reason why Tommy Lloyd is the man for the job. Is he perfect? No. He's also been a head coach 3 years, so that's something that we have to very much keep in mind. Now, tomorrow we're going to keep talking about Arizona basketball. Obviously, we will talk about we'll probably try to get into a little bit of Arizona football as well. We got spring practice here, obviously, but a pretty momentous day. We didn't even get to Dylan Anderson, which was kind of a bummer for me. I didn't really see Dylan leaving. That one definitely took me by surprise, but wish Dylan nothing but the best. I think he'd be a pretty good fit at GCU next to my guy, Duke Brennan. And obviously Umar Ballo moving on, but that was kind of a mutual decision. Wish Umar nothing but the best because Umar is a fantastic kid. But on that note, as always, thanks for making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. Bear down, back of the A, and we will be back with you tomorrow.